Okay, so let's get right into it. Take a moment, find your seat, and settle in. You know what to do here. Use whatever you're comfortable with to arrive as instantly as you can to the immediate and direct experience of your body sitting. You might check in with the points of pressure where your body meets the support below it. You may feel into the weight of your body. You may check on your posture. See that you are straight, but not broomstick straight. You may see if you can relax the muscles around your eyes or unclench your jaw. You may pay close attention to the boundaries of your body and of your skin and see if they dissolve under scrutiny. Whatever you do, just take a moment and see if you can do it without too much fuss or fanfare or technique. None of that is really necessary. This arrival doesn't need to be such a big deal. Drop everything and simply sit. Now, if you've been following a series of practices here, up to this point, we will have worked almost exclusively with breathing. Not in the sense of breath work or breathing techniques, but we will have used breathing as the main focus or the main object of practice. We have used it to hone our concentration and clarity and even equanimity. But it was all about the breathing and coming back to the breathing. What we're going to do now is begin to open that space to the other domains and avenues of sensory input that make up our experience moment by moment. And we're going to do it systematically, one by one, and put each front and center so that we can get to know it and its nuances and dynamics really, really well. And we're going to start with sight or seeing. And we're going to do this while keeping the breath as a centralizing attentional structure so that we can always rest our attention almost passively on the sensations of breathing while exploring these other domains of sensory input. And today we're going to open up the sight domain. And from a practical perspective, what that means is that up to this point we had our eyes closed mostly. And now we're going to have them open almost all the time. That should be fun. But before all that, take a moment to do the thing. Find your breath. Check in with the usual spots where you tend to feel the raw sensations of breathing most clearly. Maybe that is the expansion of your abdomen, the rising of your chest. It might be the feeling and even the sound of your breath passing through your nose and the back of your throat, whatever it is. Use that space as a sort of a shelf on which to rest your attention. And you don't have to do anything here. You don't have to count your breath. You don't have to follow it in any particular way. We're not here exercising concentration using breathing as training ground. Not anymore. You are now familiar enough so that you can gently rest your attention on your breathing while attending to other stuff that needs attending. So take a moment, do this, settle in, and take a couple deliberate breaths, just to be sure you are where you need to be. And then simply open your eyes and see what you see. The first thing you probably noticed, and in fact you may have missed it, because it is such an obvious thing that it hardly registers as something worth noticing, is that the moment you open your eyes, your visual field is just full of stuff. What this stuff is will vary depending on context and where you are sitting, but your visual field is there online and packed immediately. It needs no rendering. And in fact, if you pay very close attention, you may actually notice that as long as you are aware and conscious, as long as there is somebody home and you have eyes and visual processing capacities that work, your visual field is always there and always full. Now, it may be full of a blank wall. It may be full of pitch black darkness of a dark room. It may even be full of the darkness in the back of your eyelids if you were to close your eyes right now. But it is still there. It is always there. It's only the contents that change. So you can close your eyes now for a moment and realize that your visual field is still there, but the contents within it have changed quite substantially. And then if you open your eyes again, like right now, boom, there's all this shit. And you didn't have to do anything about it. You didn't have to go out somehow and grab things to see. It's just automatic, always on. And you can't help but see what you see. You cannot somehow stop yourself from seeing the next thing you see. It's not how it works. It has very little to do with you, in a manner of speaking. And then if you close your eyes again and turn your head maybe 90 degrees to the left, and then open your eyes, the contents of the visual field will have changed, 3 times in that movement. But it is still the same visual field, still working the same way. You can try closing your eyes again and shifting to the complete other side. Open them. Boom. Visual field, still the same. It's just different shit in it. And notice that as you were doing that maneuver, eyes open, eyes closed, moving, eyes open, your visual field was constantly there, unbroken, uninterrupted. It's just that the contents changed. Try this a few times, slowly, and see if you can get a sense of this continuity of the visual space of experience. This distinction between the space of awareness and its contents is really important. And it becomes clearer with practice. You almost get used to seeing experience in this way. This doesn't apply only to sight. It applies for every other avenue of sensory input and awareness and consciousness in general. As long as there is somebody home, that is, as long as you are conscious, there is stuff going on in there, in that space of awareness. In fact, you are going to be very hard pressed to find awareness without contents. That's not really a thing outside of abstract discussions. And also, arguably, as far as subjective first-person direct experience goes, you don't get stuff without awareness. But since as a matter of course we tend to take things for granted, because human, this simple realization that as long as you are aware and awake and conscious, your visual field is packed with things, escapes us. We simply take it as a given. So what we are going to do instead is make the effort of being mindful of it. And so every time you realize that you are seeing stuff, regardless of what that stuff may be, simply say to yourself, seeing. And then, seeing. And then, oh, seeing. Because there is stuff being seen. That's cool. But there is seeing happening, and there is seeing being known. Now that's even more cool. Now this might feel a little weird, and it's definitely a little weird to think about, because you might say, if my visual field is always present, then how am I ever not seeing, right? And if I'm going to go and notice and label every time I see, I'm just going to be going around the world saying seeing, 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 seeing. Well, see for yourself, and you may notice that our attention doesn't quite work like that. It tends to lean preferentially across different domains of sensory inputs at different times. And even though they're all more or less present in one form or another, there's always something being seen or some seeing going on. There's always some hearing going on. There's always some feeling going on, whether external or internal. At any given time, your attention is leaning on one more than the others. And then it shifts. And then it shifts again. And so even though you may be walking around the street, navigating that street quite well, obviously through the faculty of seeing, your attention, more likely than not, is going to be leaning on some internal talk or even internal imagery. And you might not even be aware of this complexity and this nuance. And it's not so much that we want to be calling out whenever there is seeing going on in some objective sense. What we want to do is be very attuned to the shifting of our subjective experience. And every time we realize, oh hey, we're seeing stuff, simply note and label by saying to ourselves, oh, seeing. And then let it go. See what happens next. And that letting go is a whole lot easier if you just return to the breath. So let's try this. Take a little bit of time and see if you can do it for yourself. Simply sit there as you're sat, eyes open. Rest your attention on the raw sensations of your breathing. And simply every time you realize that you are seeing, whatever it is that you are seeing, simply notice and label to yourself, seeing, and then let it go. Move on. Return to the sensations of breathing. Don't worry about how often you notice, how often you label. We'll work that out along the way. as you're resting your attention on the sensations of breathing with your eyes open, and you notice that you are seeing, simply say to yourself, seeing, and then move on. Now, we're not here trying to get better at seeing. We're certainly not trying to get better at staying locked in and focused in our awareness of seeing going on, which is an easy and wrong sort of conclusion to draw here. We are not even here training to see with concentration and clarity and equanimity. These things will be side effects, absolutely. But what we are really doing is simply learning to see, seeing. So let's spend a little bit more time. Rest your attention on your breath. Keep your eyes open. And every time you notice that you are seeing, whatever it is that you're saying, simply say to yourself, seeing. And then move on. And if you find yourself overwhelmed and distracted by how many seeings you have to note and label, well, firstly, you don't have to note and label every one of them. And secondly, you can always go back to resting your attention on your breath for a moment. Okay, that's probably enough of this whole looking around thing for today. As we bring this to a close, see if you can touch this attentiveness to seeing at some point throughout your day. When you're washing your dishes, or opening a door, or just randomly when you look at your watch, or especially when you look at your phone. That's a pretty good one. Simply realize, oh, there's seeing going on. Cool. And then move on. See if doing this consistently changes anything for you, if it opens up a bit of space for you. And I'll talk to you next time.